All right, Martha, morning.
I thought when people got the outfit,
Yeah.
people forgot that even the quality
That fits very well into my opening statement. I'm not sure why I had this job. No. But however it happened, I'm happy to be here. I feel like I owe my alma mater one, maybe. When I graduated with this class in 1928, I was the sixth member of my family to graduate from OHS. And I think when the teachers saw me get my diploma that night, they thought surely that's the last of that Horan family. But come September, my younger sister enrolled. But when she graduated in 1932, that ended a string of 20 consecutive years that one or more of our family had attended some high school. So I feel a little indebted to a school that furnished so much education for so many members of my family. I don't remember an evening when I had more enjoyment than I had last night in going around and talking to different ones. Especially, I enjoyed my chat with Lois Southern. She reminded me of something I kind of forgot about, the crystal radio. I forgot all about that, how you use that little wire to get it just played the right place on the stove, you know. The best we could ever get was the local station, but very difficult. And we agreed that our lifespan comes at the most wonderful time in history. Everything has happened during our lifetime. The radio, you can turn your radio now on and get all over the world. Television, you can turn your television on and get the Olympics. See it better than the people who are technically Olympics. Our transportation, our cars are so tremendous now. Airplanes travel at the speed of sound.
Don't forget that Molly Beans are.
I remember when my father brought home our first Model T Ford in 1914 at a 4-acre goal. And all the neighbors came to see it. It was the first one up on top McPherson Street. The white of the bed. You know, it just seems like the world just keeps getting smaller and smaller because of transportation and communication. And that was brought home very clearly to us this week. LaRue Plaza, that Harold Hackhuff's wife, worked out at the hospital for many years, and so did my wife. They were very good friends. Wednesday of this week, she got a call from LaRue. And she said, Margaret, I just got a call from Seoul, Korea. My son, Jerry, was so excited he could hardly talk. He said he just got from a meeting downtown in Seoul at the American Chamber of Commerce. And the purpose of the meeting and the reception was to honor the athletes from America that were going to participate over in Seoul. Well, during the course of the evening, he said, I bumped into this fellow by the name of Phil Horan. He said that name kind of threw me. But then when I found out he was from Ottumwa, Iowa, I just had to find out if he was in relation to Phil Horan. You know, I can remember in high school, I had one teacher, and I enjoyed it, Miss Oliver. When she'd take the roll call, she'd say, Philip Horan. That was the only person that ever called me. So when I at home, I'd answer the telephone, and I'd say Horan resident. But my family said, no, it ain't Horan. And both our boys, wherever they go, it's Horan. Well, anyway, he just couldn't believe he works for the Ford Motor Company. Took a 5-year commitment to work in Seoul. Well, our son, Phil Jr., works for Bank of America over there. He's been in Seoul for almost 4 years. And Jerry just couldn't get over that they could be that far away from home and bump into somebody right from Ottumwa. Jerry grew up at Blakesburg. He was 7 years older than our boy. They didn't know one another in high school. He knew that Harold and I were good friends. He didn't know that his mother and Phil's mother was good friends. So that really brought home to us how small the world is. We had the same thing happen. We'd come over in March to see our son, and we knew there were some people over in Seoul that we knew, but we hardly expected. The second night we were there, my niece and her husband, who was a career Army man, and Dennis Bates, who we saw grow up on the south side, he and his wife were over there teaching school, international school. Then my son and his wife, Margaret and I, there were 8 of us, all of us roots back there in Ottumwa Island. It's quite unusual. I don't know how the rest of you folks, but I kind of enjoy retirement. But the biggest decision we have to make of a morning when we get up is where we're going to eat breakfast and who we're with. I look at that. But a lot of time in the afternoon, I'll come back to town to have coffee again. I had this one gentleman that I coffee with a lot. A fellow I worked at the courthouse with for many years. Celebrated his 89th birthday. John, you remember Walter, who was your secretary to the zoning board that you so graciously served on for us many years. He lived over on Queen Anne, just a couple doors down with Doy Foster, another one of our classmates. Seems like every time I pick Walter up, he's singing the praises of Doy Foster. Doy's been over, he installed a hot water heater, or he's got his air conditioner working again. He says that Doy is an absolute genius. He could just fix almost anything.
Oh, that's what's that.
But he says, I'm worried about Doy. He said, he's been complaining lately, not feeling too good. But he said he's got a doctor's appointment, and I hope there's nothing very seriously wrong with it. Oh, I said, I'm sure there's not. I said, every time I see Doy, he looks great to me. Well, the very next time I picked Walter up, I said, how's my friend Doy? Oh, fine. But he passed his physical in fine shape. He said, the doctor told us your vital signs are all very good, and you're in very good health. You're going to live forever. Well, but then he said, Doy, you do have a couple of blemishes on that body of yours that I don't quite understand. He said, you've got some bruises around your ankles there. I said, I would associate that with a hockey player or maybe soccer player, somebody like that,
What's that?
No, I said, no, that couldn't have happened that way. He said, I really don't know how that happened. He said, now, Juan and I do play a lot of bridge. I spoke about Walter being a good friend of mine working at the courthouse, I don't know how I got into politics. I knew when I first got there that I didn't belong. I knew I didn't have the attributes that a real politician should have. I never was very adept at kissing babies at whatever age. And my storytelling, as you can tell, is very bad. It was so bad that down at the courthouse, even today, after 10 years of retirement, if somebody tells a real corny joke down, they'll say, that was a Bill Warren joke. I'll never forget the day I was up in the auditor's office, stopped him on a coffee break. And as usual, when you stop for a coffee break, why, 2 or 3 other people will gather around. And he starts spinning yarns, telling dull stories. Each one trying to talk the other. Well, this particular day, I thought I'd have a pretty good day. Nobody let me down or anything, put me down. I thought maybe I mastered this storytelling business. Then I looked across the room there. There sat Norma. She had her kicked hands just sitting there on the back right her knees. She gave me that look like, Phil, why don't you give up? Well, I ignored the warning. I thought Norma never did like my story. No, I'm not about to let her spoil my day. Well, time to get back to work. So I pushed my chair back and started to get up. She said, Bill, I have a question. She says, when you go to confession, do you take your lunch?
It's funny.
You know, it was a lot of fun in a way serving on the committee. It was quite interesting getting the letters back. If you haven't read the letters back on the bulletin board back there, it'll be quite interesting. I went back and see if you can read some of them. They tell why they couldn't be found and so forth. And then, of course, we have a few of our classmates who absolutely refused to grow old. And they had these requests like they wanted music, time for dancing. They kind of give us the impression that after the dinner Saturday night, they hoped, and speeches if there had to be any, but there would be time left for dancing. It kind of reminds me of the 88-year-old lady who went to the doctor for her annual physical. During the course of the physical, the doctor noticed she had a pretty watch on her wrist. And after the physical, he said, "Man, that is a beautiful watch, very beautiful." He says, "It has to be very old." "No, not at all," she said. "That was a gift, my high school graduation." Well, if that lady had 10 years on most of us, and she could feel so young at heart, I guess our classmates would be able to enjoy life too. I rambled on long enough. Hope I haven't bored you. Then I'm going to turn the program. The next article on the agenda is our memorial. That's a part of the program that I wish we could delete, but we cannot. It wouldn't be proper. It always comes that time when we must stop, pause, and reflect. So I'll turn the microphone over to Leah Kensing.
Right. What's what?